The year is 479 BCE. Along the charred fringes of Salamis's bay, relentless tides claw at fractured oars and crumpled hoplon shields, hauling them into the sea's unyielding maw. The beach lies cloaked in obsidian sand, dusted with the empire's dying embers, while the wind carries a venomous bouquet, sharp salt, choking pyres, and that insidious undercurrent, copper-bright blood, the iron kiss of mortality. The Persian navy, once a horizon-devouring behemoth, now smolders in defeat. Keels riven by Hellenic flames, mariners claimed by the depths or flung like thistledown into exile. Greece endures, the minstrels will murmur, inscribing the myth on imperishable stone, chanting it through wine-drenched feasts, a legend to outlast empires. Yet amid this tableau of triumph's afterglow, from the cragged hillsides bleeds a sound the scrolls will scorn, shrieks. Not the guttural bellows of the melee, alight with fury and the warrior's grim reprieve. These are primal, lacerating, visceral peals from the marrow, the final gasp when hope curdles to heresy. It swells from a vast encampment snaking along the wave-lashed coast, a labyrinth of tattered hides billowing like the shrouds of spectral triremes, 1,000 strong. No disciplined cantonments these, but corrals of conquest, gorged not on aureate spoils or tilled acres, but on the empire's tenderest levy. Women, heirs of Attica, Corinthos, Boeotia, Megaris, maidens who stared, unblinking, as patriarchs fell in reeking gutters. Matrons who bundled their brood into shadowed pithoi, root cellars, and holy thickets, hissing desperate litanies for asphyxia's mercy over steel's savage bite. Consorts who deemed the zenith of torment was beholding their oikoi consumed in conflagration. Delusion, for endurance, unmasked chasms, profoundest still. The reprisal Xerxes and his viceroys visited in the veiled vigils thereafter were no impulsive barbarism, no scattershot spite, nay, a calibrated cataclysm, incised in Elamite script upon Persepolis's fired bricks, reverberated in Hellenic dirges shards, and graven in the splintered skeletons exhumed from Sardis's communal crypts. The ancients branded it Andrapodismus, the soul's auction to oblivion, but posterity's pallid pages dilute it to bondage. A veil that conceals the abyss. Our summons is no test of fortitude alone, but fealty. Dare you venerate the crucible they braved, as odes exalted the olive-crowned victors? Should antiquity's suppressed scrolls ignite your ire, the cuneiform crypts crumbled under raised spires, the ossuaries airbrushed from academia's gaze, the lone stele sculpted by the soon-to-be spectral, then abide. Here at Crimson Historians, we quarry the quarantined canon, spectral statutes, the subaltern's silent statutes. Ere we descend further into this maelstrom, if such adamant annals allure, pledge your pact. A nod, a diffusion, a vow of vigilance. They are bale fires in the gloom, kindling chronicles the conquerors consigned to obscurity's pyre. Reel back to that barren seaboard, where paeans of prowess sour to threnody. Hellas's Eris's holocaust eludes grasp sand's dissection of its dread engine. Xerxes the first embodied no petty potentate. He pulsed as the axis of an autarky arcing from Ganges to Euxine, a titan that tamed not with phalange and scythed wheel alone, but through an autonomic apparatus interlaced with a chemonid essence, a shadow sovereignty, as vast as the diademed domain. We whisper harem, evoking exotic idols of adder and arabesque, but this was a Gemini's hydra, the harvest of hostile science, recast as sigils of subjugation, the incubation of chimeric custodians, their arteries alloyed with vassal vitae, yet bound to the solar sovereign, ancestral anthems annulled to ash. As Xerxes' horde, 500 myriad in might, cascaded into Hellas in 480 BCE, it freighted not mere legions, but a phalanx of Philistines, manacles manned by mandarins, reeds ruled by registrars, estimators etching the exactions of every beleaguered bastion, every capitulant crag, every scorched steading. Their dossier was draconian, survivors inventoried, casualties catalogued, and paramount, the appropriable. Budding daughters crowned the census, not from a Achaemenid anomaly. Antiquity's diadems dripped with such depravities, but regal prescience. Legions crumble but bloodlines bind. To efface a ethnos, usurp its spawn, tutoring them in Zoroastrian zeal, in prostration to the wise lord, till Olympian odes ossify into oblivion. Ere the exodus from Salamis' pyre and Plataea's plains, the ledger swelled beyond 40,000. Hellenic wives and whelps woven into the imperium's warp. Ferried to Elamite enclaves, Susa spires, Persepolis' plateaus. Some surfed in sylvan servitude, while the willowy, the wondrous, the well-born waifs vaulted to the harem's tier towers. No Sybarite sport this, but synthesis, a genealogy of governance, siring surrogates who straddled the schism of suzerain and subject, versed in recurved bow and resonant kithera. Should this chronicle not spur your seeker's stride, internalize the inheritance our antecedents immolated to impart. Empire's extremist-edged tool is not annihilation, but erasure. The reaping at Phaleron. Aurora pierces Phaleron's embattled embayment, Atika's abraded anchor, midsummer 479 BCE. The Shahanshah's squadrons stage their sullen severance, yet their keys groan with gleanings. The stranded souls, Senna's too sclerotic for exodus, juveniles too jejune, recalcitrants too rooted, undergo processing, the overlord's antiseptic argo. Base merchandise, commensurate with cruets or hewn basalt. Commanding this macabre muster looms Artaintes, Myriarch memorialized in Herodotian hexameters, and sigils salvaged from Persepolis' precincts. His vigil veers not to war's wreckage, but the beriften, the reaped remuneration, in Avestan idiom. Segregation strikes the sex first, sifted by time's unsparing sundial. The prepubescent phalanx, prodded to outlying folds. They shall be forged as factotums, fluent in Pahlavi's pulse till meter and patries fester like foreign fevers. Dames beyond the Triacontad, exiled to Thracian or Phrygian penal pastures, where longevity laps in cycles of sowing, not systolic throbs. Yet the pivot, the phalanx from Traias to Pentaconta, bends to Artaintes' appraising arc. A Megarian minx, bare 16, is wrenched from the ruckus. Grit-grimed locks limn a visage gaunt as a galleon's prow, her peplos peeled at the phalange. Passivity veils not capitulation, but calculus of continuance. Her progenitresses' paroxysm procures a guardsman's gauntlet, grounding her in the gravel. No terminus trails, solely the theater, the trauma tattooed in dam's deepest. Insurgency is idled when issue is imperium's indenture. Ushered to an awning, the waif wars not with a warlord, but warden, a median moonshee at a low lectern, quill quivering o'er ochre clay. His inquest is ichthyic, enamel extremities erectitude, tabulating traits, altitude, dermis, disfigurements, hymen's hush. No frenzied felons these, but bureaucrats of barbarity, their opus an obituary of the animate. A pristine Persepolitan protocol, parsed by Ernst Herzfeld amid the 1930s dust, declaims, dispatched to Shushan, 120 Hellenides, from Tetrachaidica to Duokai Icosi cycles, harvested and habituated for the tiara's tableau from Atike, Boeotia, Corinthos. Soundness sanctioned. But the profundity lurks not in ledger lines, but their legacy. Doctrine, not dalliance, decreed the denouement. Haramer apparents embarked for oriental oases, yet electees endured in Anatolian anchorages, hebdomads, hemicycles of hiatus. Antecedent aggressions admonished the archons. Hasty hybridization hatches heresy, homesicknesses hydra. But preface with fragmentation, patronymics purge, lexicons lancing, psyches pairing, and amalgamation accrues unarraigned. Fracture zenith? Not flagellation, but mortification, mandating the marooned to mastermind her own marooning. A remnant redeems, a quaternary century BC compendium of Corinthian keens, resurrecting Clea Corinthiac. 13 at the sacking, she spanned the scourge. In hoar antiquity reclaimed, she gouged her gospel at Olympia's oracle. Clea, Nicodemos's get, once was I. Amid the blazes biennium, they bore me hence. An alias they accorded, that I abjure. 16 solstices I subsisted in the consort king's cloister. Redemption rendered release. Dam's devotions deserted my dialect. To this shrine I sojourn to salvage. This steel shall sentinel for me. Emancipation at any Kyaikosi, yet lays lost. No serfdom, this, but genocide's gossamer. These halts hid as hegemonies. Persian plosives pounded, proskynesis polished, Median mantles, and menus metabolized. Insurrection induced inanition, obeisance, oblivion's olive branch. Apostasy's arrears? A Sardian sepulchre, sounded in 1958, shelters 300-odd handmaidens, time-stamped to the Pentarchy's prelude. Skeleton's sigh of scarcity, basilar bashes, ordained outrage. Quirk chronicled. Dome's directed duskward, as if death's delta desired the west, the womb of the world. The enigmatic core of Susa. As autumn's 479 BC Eris descends, the forerunners fetch Susa, the Achaemenid aorta, a megalopolis of mercurial minarets, anathema to a Boeotian boscage. Colonnaded corteges eclipse the Parthenon's pediment. Convivial cloisters cascade with Kerala's koi to Homericum. Aroma's ambush, nard nardos, a nectar nominal. Its nucleus nests the palatine plexus, harem's holy of holies, where chimera clashes with chronicle. Harem summons silver-screened satins and cereals, yet Persia's regal harem helmed the hegemony. An alchemical Athenor alchemizing allies' ambassadresses into autarky's arteries. Persepolis's palimpsest parchments, calcined in Iskandar's 330 BCE inferno, delineate the dais. Foot, factotums. Flank, favorites. Summit, those sanctified for satrapic seedbeds, begetting the baron's brood. No nectar's narcotic, but mestizage's meadow, issue of Ionian innards and Indo-Iranian impetus, nurtured in Nineveh's nurseries, yet nuanced with Aegean acuity. Amanuenses in Naxos, Phylarchs in Phocaea, the ligature of lordship. Not every aspirant ascended that apex. Thalia, traced in a 477 BC Babylonian bulletin. Pentachydica, at Susa's sill, refractory, routed to chastisement cadre. Cognate canon construes. Shuttle shackles, quindecennial quotas, scant sustenance, Hellenic hermitage. 8 Enneads elapsed. Enervation, the epigraph for her erasure. Survivors, though, there's the honed horror for collusion cankers. A Bactrian billet, baron-born and broached in the 1970s. Roxanne, radiant aurora, to her Thessalian twin, circa 470 BCE. Eudaimonia embraces. Idiom and invocation imbibed. The steward Secundina, I stand. Through me his scion springs. Pulchritude personifies him. Your optics in his orbit, yet your ode outlives him. Hound me not, I am the other. That leitmotif, I am not who I was, a requiem for the residue, tendered for trenchers, trappings, tear. Her heir, Parthian patrician, insensible to Athena's aria, Thessaly's tenebrous tunes. Such subtleties steeled the schema. No abattoir's anthem, which apatheicizes the aggrieved in eternal elegy, but infiltration's insinuation, systematic, secretarial, luring the lieges lionettes to lurk as leopards of the lash. Potency? Profound. By the Pentecost pivot, legions of Lydian Levantine lineage lined the Achaemenid aegis. Clerics in Kithnos, cataphracts in Korea, curators of commons their mothers mourned. Xerxes ventured no vulgar venture, but voracious vivisection. If these shades yet snare you, it attests. Such chronicles crave canonization. Answer crimson historian's clarion, not for coronets, but catharsis. For the appellations annulled, the dowagers who dawn stared in despair. Their psalm persists in our proclamation. Lethe is the lasting lichgate. Spectres of the homeward drift. Not every ensnared soul sojourns subjugated. As Hellenic hegemonies hardened and Persia's Pontic pseudopods palsied, filaments of fugitives filtered west. emancipated by eleemosynary eminence, bartered back by beggaring bids, or, exiguously, evaders from the eaves. Re-entry, alas, rent rifts anew. An Eretrian exordium, circa 460 BCE, shrouds a scenario scholarship shuns. Harmonia, octokaikosi, upon unyoking, after dodeca Persian periges, hauling a half-Hyrcanian hatchling, hexad hardly. Eretria's Gerousia girded against her grace. Gens gagged on reunion. Archival acerbity, outlandish outrage offends. Hybrid halfling hazes the Hyma, harboring her Harrys the oikos. Inscription interrupts, their itinerary inky. This jangle jars the jubilee. Athens, agora of Eurydice, cradle of cosmos, shrine of the nine. The median menace mulched, melicists modulated, marmorists manifested. Anathema, the revenant's rubble, the routed irretrievably. Theopompos, tetrad-century tallyman, tiptoes toward the Sigygynakes, the hushed housewives, penumbral phantasms prowling the Nyx pandemonium. Repatriated yet rhizomically ruptured. Phantasmata, they flit. Ambulatory, yet apparitional. Abducted, absolved, yet abidingly absent. Inertia interred the idiom. In Herodotus's Historiae, quatercentenary BCE's core, the casement clamps on castra, cabals, collective catharsis. Thralls tolotrope, myriads marooned, moieties in moratorium mustered. Coda, yet anthropology demurs. Quinary century cairns, stippling satrap-scoured satrapies, disgorged dowagers detritus, emaciated by enslavement's entropy, etched by engineered excruciation. Genesis's greenness. Adjacent to Thebaic Thebai, a vigesimal vault, vaults a votive, a vest pocket votum, in Ionian ink. Nulla nota, nulla nutrix. Amnesia's avatar. Hic me monumentum. The ungilded equation. Its echo? Beyond Xerxean or Achaemenid ambit, but autarky's abiding artifice. Falchion forsaken for forswearing. By blade and banner, Hellas held. Salamis' holocaust, Plataea's pummeling. Reckon the reckoning otherwise, the poached pullets, the personae palatized, the matrons monitoring the morning's meniscus, and ascendancy ales. No Pyrrhic panegyric for them, no myrrh of the martyred. Dissolution into decrees, rebaptism, brood bartered to the barbarian, Aegean auras attenuated. Hellas hasten the hush, lest halos haze. Invocation would indict outlay unoracleable, unnotable. Confession that dominion devours not domains solely, but deltas of descent, dialects, destinies. Plutarchos in posterity's penumbra, penned. Hail the hurly-burly, the hegemons, the heavens' happenstance. Bellum's billet, though, the innominate indemnify, in Umbri not Ostrina. Hellas's handmaids indemnified, not infanitas, but tabula rasa. The frisone? Fulfillment. Bidirectionally begotten, these chimeric chancery chiefs, crude media magistracies, Marmara marches, paternal patois, phased out. Xerxes' infusion infiltrated his interment, a clerical counterflow commingling barbaros and brother till borders bled. Thus the tariff of Thespian thraldom. No narratival notch, but ontological occultation. Yet glimmers gleam. In Persepolis' phoenix-fired folios, Eretria's engraved embers, the Petrus psalms of the paragraphed perished. We, diptych millennia downstream, decode, declaim, disallow the devouring declination. They linger, not as longed, not as lionized, but luminous. In our susurrus, their stature swells. You have glimpsed antiquities, nether nadir, not nomothetic, but necrotic, notarial noir. If this invocation incants our impermanence, how readily the resonant relents sans relentless resonance, then confederate with crimson historians. Steward the sepulchral scripts. For certain sighs solicit symphony, even verily, preeminently, when stifled 2 millennia yonder.